Okay, everyone, let's take our seats. Good morning. I'm Jimmy Derby. I'm one of the members of the Restore Louisiana Task Force, co-chairing this meeting. I'm one of the two co-chairs. Welcome to all of you here. We're going to begin with calling this meeting to order and the roll call.
Mr. Bradbury?
Here.
Mr. Kluwat? Mr. D'Artes? Mr. Durbin?
Here.
Mr. Falk?
Here.
Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Gissel?
Here.
Representative James? Mr. Knapp? Senator Morrish? Mayor Norris?
Here.
Mr. Olivier? Mr. Pearson?
Present.
Representative Pope?
Present.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Dr. Richardson?
Here.
Mayor President Robideau? Representative Shadowin? Commissioner Strain?
Here.
Mayor Tyler? Dr. Wilson? Ms. Wyatt? Sir Chair, 11 members are present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. The committee is composed of 21 members and 11 makes a quorum. So we are here now officially convened with a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the June 9th, 2017 and July 14th, 2017 meeting minutes. We will begin with the June 9th, 2017 minutes. Those are in your folder. I participated at that meeting, so do we have a motion to approve?
I move. Second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The minutes are approved. Now we take up the second set of minutes. June 9th, 2017 minutes. Motion? Second. Second. Who was the second? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Those meetings are unanimously approved. Okay. Thank you. Going back to our agenda. Item 4, I will make some remarks as chairman. A very special thank you to Reverend Ray Johnson for hosting the Restore Louisiana Task Force meeting here in this wonderful facility on the grounds of First Pentecostal Church. And a special thank you to First Pentecostal Church for welcoming us today. Representative James, thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Reverend Johnson to come forward. Reverend Johnson, and bless us with a wonderful prayer as you are well able.
Thank you, Mr. Durbin. And on behalf of the First Pentecostal Church of Denham Springs, we welcome our committee and all of you wonderful guests from the city. God bless you. Welcome to our facility. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we bow in your presence. We thank you for the many things that you bestowed upon us and blessed us with. First of all, Heavenly Father, we thank you that we are your children. We thank you that we are American citizens. We thank you for this great home of the brave and land of the free. May it always remain free. Have your blessings and approval upon our nation. Heavenly Father, we pray for our committee today, that you will guide them in the decisions they will make. Bless this audience, Father, of hurting people. Together, Lord, we seek for answers for the healing and the restoration of our community. We pray by your Holy Spirit, of the Holy Ghost, grant that to us, Lord. We thank you for all these things. Bless all this here. This we ask in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, who is and was, nevermore shall be, God Almighty, world without end. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Johnson. I would also like to recognize Mayor Gerard Landry, Mayor of the City of Denham Springs. Mayor Landry, we thank you for your leadership and and dedication to the Denham Springs community and Livingston Parish. Thank you. We all know that Livingston Parish is one of the top 10 most impacted parishes of the great floods of 2016. Denham Springs in August of 2016. We chose to hold our meeting in Denham Springs because using our data analysis, over 47% of the flood victims in this area with FEMA verified loss have not filled out and completed the Restore Louisiana Homeowner Assistance Program survey. So hopefully by meeting here, some individuals that have yet to complete that survey will step forward and try to participate in the program. That calculates to 7,556 missing surveys. We are hoping to reach some of those victims, flood victims here today, and assist them in the survey step of the process. Some of you may have noticed upon arriving to this meeting, there are tables set up in the reception area. Let me clarify that. The reception area is if you go out the doors to the outside right here, the foyer, then you will make a left into an area that has a table set up. And there are Restore Louisiana individuals, ladies, sitting at the tables there to help answer questions and to also help complete surveys for you. There's also another table set up with legal counsel that can help give possible some interesting legal advice if you ask. So that's the reception area where these tables are set up. The other table, as I was saying about legal advice, that is being composed of Southeast Louisiana Legal Services and Southern University Law Center to provide information. We want to recognize those individuals. I am excited to report on the additional families who have been served through the Restore Louisiana Homeowner Program. We now have over 41,000 flood victims statewide who have completed the Restore Louisiana Homeowner Assistance Program survey. This equates to an additional 10,000 surveys being completed since our last task force meeting on July 14th. A little side note, when I was standing near the door, entrance door, I saw some husband and wife walk in, and they were interested in participating and sitting at this meeting because they had completed the survey, but they are waiting to hear back from the Restore program. So there is a waiting period. We hope it's not very long for individuals who have completed the survey to wait to receive a phone call or a contact. So hopefully there's information forthcoming today. More than 21,000 environmental reviews. These are environmental reviews that are mandated by the federal law. These reviews have been completed, which represents 94% of the homeowners currently in phases 1 through 6. We now have over 10,000 homeowners that have been invited to complete an application. Of those, 6,350 have submitted. As of today, 543 homeowners have received grant award acknowledgments through the Homeowner Assistance Program. That totals more than $16 million of the funds allocated to Louisiana, getting out to Louisiana homeowners. The numbers I just went through demonstrate that substantial and meaningful strides are being made in the recovery process. They're substantial and meaningful, but again, we all acknowledge that it's slow. But we know that we are just beginning and that we have a long way to go to help everyone recover from these floods. We know that if you are not back in your home, none of these things makes much difference. You still need help. This task force is committed to seeing that you get that help as quickly as possible within the system we have to work with. Governor Edwards has heard the voices of Louisiana residents who feel punished by the NFIP stipulation, preventing them from being eligible for the homeowner program. Governor Edwards has requested that this task force look into expanding the program to incorporate those affected. We can expect Mr. Forbes with the Office of Community Development to provide more insight shortly when he makes his presentation into the possible expansion of the program to modify the program today to address this issue with available funds. As I always do, I close my opening remarks with this extremely important reminder. If you are a homeowner and were impacted by the March and August floods, please take the homeowner flood damage survey. It does not matter where you are in your rebuilding process. We need to know what kind of help you need in recovery. This is also the first step in applying and qualifying for assistance. Please visit the website restore.la.gov. All right. Aaron, before I ask you to come forward, I'm going to ask Mayor Landry, who is the mayor of the city of Denham Springs, to come take a mic. He has a few comments that he would like to make. Mayor Landry, thank you, sir. You want to use this mic, or you want to take one at the table?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the hard work of everybody on the task force. It is very much appreciated, surely for all of us here in the city of Denham Springs. And it has been a long year. And it's really been long for the folks that are awaiting their monies that they can get from the task force so that they can start to rebuild. I know there's some changes that are going to be put forth. I look forward to hearing those. There is one that I would love for you guys to make sure you consider. And I know one of the stipulations is if you live in a flood zone, you cannot apply. That's one of the step 1 and step 2, if I recall. I may be wrong. But let's make sure that we can address that as well, because that would exclude most of the city of Denham Springs, which we should not allow. Most of these folks have never flooded before. So let's remember that. I get it from the NFIP standpoint. If a home has been flooded multiple times, then some decision needs to be made as far as mitigation. But let's remember the folks that have never ever flooded before and have been impacted by this event, that we do not exclude those folks. So that's my passionate plea to you, to make sure that we do not exclude those folks. And also the sharing of information between the task force and between municipalities and our parishes, I think, is paramount. Not to disseminate disinformation. I just need the facts. I need to know how many people in my city have been impacted. Not so that I can go out and make a public presentation. I just need to know what kind of progress that we're making inside the city limits. And I would encourage you to please just make some modifications to the program to allow that to happen. The other issue that I'd like to address, if I can, is sometimes it's very difficult for our folks to apply. That has been brought to the attention of the leaders of the task force in the past. Just this past weekend, I think I forwarded an email to Mayor Durbin, Mr. Pope, and Mr. Forbes, and this lady was still having problems trying to get on. So everybody has an issue sometimes with this, and sometimes it's difficult for maybe somebody in the older generation as myself that's maybe not computer literate, but there's always the 1-800 number or a location in Baton Rouge or in Hammond that we can go to. But just as recently as 5:30 this morning, I tried again, and I still can't get it filled out. So those are the kinds of issues that we see here in town, and I hope that we can resolve these issues quickly as we possibly can. Durbin, again, thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful words and requests, Mayor Landry, and thank you again for your leadership here in the city of Denham Springs. At this time, I'm going to invite to come to the table and speak. This is Erin Monroe Wesley. She is the special counsel to the governor of Louisiana, John Bell Edwards. Always bring wonderful words to us, Ms. Wesley. So you have the table now.
Good morning,
Thank
Mr. Chair, members of the Restore Task Force. The governor hoped to be here today in person to thank you, the members of the task force, for your leadership and service in guiding the state to recover the last 18 months and even beyond that. And although the governor is not here, he did ask that we share a brief video message, again, thanking you for your service and what you're doing to restore Louisiana. So we'd like to play the video at this time.
Thank thank you all for the work that you've done on the Restore Task Force, and apologize for not being able to be with you in person today in Denham Springs. And I want to thank Reverend Ray Johnson for opening the church doors to allow this meeting to happen today at the First Pentecostal Church of Denham Springs. And also thank Mayor Gerard Landry of Denham Springs for his leadership throughout, and the opportunity I had to visit with him earlier this week when Secretary Carson was in Denham Springs. I also would like to continue to thank our co-chairs, Jackie Vines and Jimmy Durbin, for the fine leadership that they are exhibiting as we move forward and as the task force continues to work. Believe it or not, it's been a year since the August flooding. An unnamed storm that was a once in 1,000 years is what we're being told, and of course we hope we don't see another one for at least 1,000 years. But the two storms together, March and August of last year, resulted in 56 of our 64 parishes being declared a major federal disaster for flood. Clearly we have a lot of Louisianans whose lives remain upside down, and so our work is far from over. But we do have a lot to be thankful for. 1 year later, due to persistent trips to Washington by myself and our team, 9 to be exact, and also working with our congressional delegation, both the Obama administration and now the Trump administration, and the bipartisan leadership that we've worked with in both the House and the Senate in Congress, we've actually received now more than $1.7 billion in appropriations for our recovery. As of the anniversary date, more than $15 million had been granted to more than 500 homeowners in awards. And while this is the fastest that has ever happened in the history of our country for a reconstruction and reimbursement program instituted to recover from a declared disaster, we are not declaring victory. We are not satisfied. There's a lot more that we need to do. We need to get it done for more people faster moving forward. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. As you know, we now know a lot more about the universe, the total population of homeowners in Louisiana who are taking the survey. We know the dollars that are available, and we feel pretty comfortable now that we can ask you to expand the amount of money that we are going to be paying out across a larger class of homeowners. Specifically, I'm asking you to expand the program so that all homeowners with flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program who are otherwise eligible for the Restore Louisiana program will be eligible. I'm also asking you to increase the amount that we will pay for work done in someone's home if they exceed 120% of the area median income, either to 75% or 100%, and I will leave that in your sound discretion. I further am asking you to increase the amount of compensation, reimbursement I should say, that we're paying to homeowners from 25% to 50%. We feel comfortable in making these changes, and in fact many of these changes to expand the program were changes that we signaled back as far as February that we would undertake if we felt comfortable doing so once we knew more about the individuals who were going to be taking advantage of our program. Now that we have more than 40,000 homeowners who have taken the survey, we do have that level of comfort to ask you to expand the program in this way. And by the way, we are not done with getting folks to take the survey. As you know, more than 90,000 homes had FEMA verified loss. And so we know there are tens of thousands more people who could potentially benefit from these programs. And so I need you to continue to help me get people to take the survey by going to restore.la.gov or going to 866-735-2001 to take the survey. That will be incredibly important. I do want to thank you for your work. I want to thank Pat Forbes and the entire team at the Office of Community Development. The simple fact of the matter is we have set record paces in the way we've dealt with this flood. From the combined 26 days that the Office of Community Development took dealing with 3 appropriations, 3 action plans, and 3 Federal Register notices, that was historically fast. And that's a quote coming from the Trump administration, specifically from HUD. We had the funding available to us for the first time on April the 10th. Immediately checks were cut to cover environmental compliance and review costs, And within 50 days, we actually had the first checks going out to homeowners. And I've already mentioned the milestones that we were able to meet by the anniversary date. We know that it's been slower than we would like, and we know that there are people who are very frustrated. We can, I think, be proud of the effort that we put into this, but we do need to continue to work with the federal government to remove barriers. And in fact, this was reinforced this week by Secretary Carson, who said he was pleased with the effort we're making in Louisiana to administer this program, and with the speed at which we're moving as it relates to our efforts. But he did acknowledge very explicitly that there are a lot of federal bureaucratic red tape issues that can and should be resolved at the federal level. So we're going to continue to work with our congressional delegation, push for relief from this bureaucratic tangle as best we can. We're going to ask for HUD to continue to issue waivers where advisable to help us deliver aid more appropriately and more quickly. But I do want to thank you very much for the work that you're doing. I'm going to ask you to favorably consider the requests that are going to be specifically made to you and explained by Pat Forbes along the lines of what I've just mentioned. And then I'm going to ask you to remain engaged because our job is not anywhere near over. But thank you so much for the work that you've already done. Again, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there with you today, but I do look forward to attending another one of your meetings in the very near future. Thank you so much.
I'd like to expound upon a few points made by the governor outlined in the video. On last Saturday, again, August 12th, we marked the one-year anniversary of the historic flooding in August 2016 by serving the community. The governor, First Lady, and over 130 staffers volunteered at 4 homes in the Baton Rouge region, one of the most heavily impacted areas. I had the opportunity to join the governor and First Lady at the home of Mrs. Lucille Huggins. Mrs. Huggins is 83 years old, a widow, and a retired kindergarten teacher who taught in the classroom for 32 years. Her home was inundated with over 3 feet of water during the August flood. She is using the resources provided by FEMA and her savings to complete repairs on her home with volunteer assistance by SVP. We had about 30 volunteers at her home priming and painting walls, along with doing some landscaping and yard work. Mrs. Huggins will be applying to the Restore Louisiana for reimbursement once the repairs to her home are complete. Again, we were also excited to have HUD Secretary Ben Carson join us this week. The Secretary was very complimentary of the recovery work underway in Louisiana, saying he was impressed by our efforts and the money will be well spent. He saw firsthand the results from our homeowner assistance program through a visit to the home of Mrs. Charlotte Rhymes on Highway 16 here in Denham Springs. During the governor's time with Secretary Carson, he continued to stress the importance of actions that can be taken by President Donald Trump's administration to ease the burdens of recovery, including relief from SBA duplication benefits. The governor hand-delivered a letter to this effect to Secretary Carson, a copy of which is contained in your binders. In the immediate aftermath of the March and August 2016 storms, more than 18,000 Louisiana homeowners were approved for SBA loans. Under HUD regulations, homeowners who were approved for loans, whether they used any of it or not, are limited in the amount of assistance they can receive from the Restore Homeowner Program because the entire amount approved is considered a duplication of benefits. We have seen this situation play out firsthand with many homeowners. The governor had the opportunity to meet with Mr. John Rome of Denham Springs at the Greenwell Springs Baptist Church as part of this past Sunday's flood anniversary service. Damages estimated for his home were determined to be roughly $48,000 for reimbursement allowance and roughly $4,700 for repairs. Mr. Rome had about $23,000 FEMA IA assistance and another $65,100 from his SBA loan, and he only drew $32,500 from that eligibility of $65,100. So this resulted in a duplication of benefits, and it equated to about $88,000, which well exceeded the project cost to complete the renovations and repairs to his home. And so because of that duplication of benefits, Mr. Rome is not eligible to receive additional assistance from the Restore program. Finally, the governor wants to ensure that the homeowner assistance program is made available to help as many homeowners as we can. As the chair noted in his opening remarks, we've provided more than $16 million to homeowners, roughly about 543 homeowners, to rebuild their lives. 21 homeowners in the city of Denham Springs have received assistance with awards of roughly $998,000. More broadly, in Livingston Parish, for 111 homeowners, we have provided a total award amount of roughly $3.46 million for repairs or reimbursement. But we know we can do more. The governor has made recommendations for expanding the eligibility and payment amounts for the homeowner program, as he has said he wanted to do from the beginning if funds were available. Now, it's important that everybody know that these recommendations were not made in a vacuum. The governor knows that there are many other unmet needs, including investing in infrastructure that will reduce the damage from flooding in future events. But the promise to help homeowners fully recover and help neighborhoods come back is a top priority. We recommended that parameters be established early on in our recovery process because there simply was no guarantee that there would be enough funds available to assist homeowners with flood insurance. As grants are being awarded and home inspections and damage assessments are being completed, it's clear that there should be enough funds to cover additional affected households. So the governor is asking the task force to consider the following: expanding the program eligibility requirements to include all homeowners with flood insurance who still have an unmet need after insurance proceeds, increasing the amount the program pays homeowners for flood-related repair costs that have not yet been completed, and increasing the percentage homeowners are reimbursed for the repairs they have already completed. Now, Pat Forbes will detail all these recommendations as part of his update to the task force, and as you carefully weigh these recommendations, again, we're asking for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the task force? Ms. Wesley? Unforthcoming. Thank you. Appreciate your remarks. Sitting here, I'm looking straight ahead, and I see a fellow that's a good, very, very good friend of mine, and his name is Leighton Ricks. And Leighton, I know you're not feeling very well. Would you like to come to the table and make a few remarks? Welcome to come to the table, Parish President Leighton Ricks.
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to echo the sentiments of Mayor Landry and the concerns that we have out here that we still see. We're promoting and we're working hard to try to get people to fill out these surveys. We understand how important it is, but across the board, every statement that an individual homeowner makes to us is, exactly the same. Why, when we know we're not going to get anything? We explain that to them. We explain the necessity of filling them out to get them in. Obviously, we hope we can get some more money for Louisiana. This goes a long way in helping. But somehow or another, that sentiment has spread to just about every homeowner in the parish. So it's good news to hear that there has been roughly $3.5 million put out, and some 111 homes have experienced some help. Word of mouth certainly would help that spread as well, because up till recently we had not heard those numbers. But I would implore each of you, if you possibly can, and I know you do, but in every decision you make, remember these are people. These are families that are, depending on whose numbers you use, somewhere between 78 and 90% of the parish was affected by this flood. We need help out here. We need all the help we can get for our homeowners. I applaud the governor for wanting to relax some of this. I think that will go a long way in helping people out in Livingston Parish, so I hope you will consider those requests and grant them. I would like to see us do a little bit more as money comes in or as money is made available for the people in Livingston Parish, because one of the complaints I still am hearing is this SBA loan business. We should not be penalized, and I know you all know this, but we should not be penalized for making a loan and not sitting on our laurels and waiting to get it back in our homes. I'm one of those very ones, and I know Representative Pope's in the same position. We should not have elderly people who have used their retirement, have used all their savings to get back in homes, be penalized. We shouldn't have anybody that's willing to borrow the money to rebuild their homes be penalized from receiving any kind of money from any governmental body. And so I would ask you to do all you can to look into that and see what can be done, if anything, to relax some of those rules as well. I applaud all of your efforts. I know it's time consuming. I know it's gut wrenching the decision that you make. And obviously you are, but again, I would just ask that you remember these are families, these are real people. And some of them I'm sure are friends or relatives probably of each of you, but it's important to consider these things. So I hope you will do that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, President Ricks. Thank you for all your hard work. All right, moving to item 6. We now have a presentation by Patrick Forbes, Executive Director of the Louisiana Office of Community Development. Mr. Forbes? What Mr. Forbes is about to present to you is very, very important, so listen closely.
Chairman, members of the task force, thank you. I will first go through a presentation that is working. What about this one? Okay, sorry. I'll first go through a presentation to update on all the programs that we have, and then we will talk through the recommendations for program changes after that. It has been an eventful month, of course, with the anniversary. There's been plenty going on, lots of attention, and I want to make sure that we show you all the underlying facts and update where we are on each of the programs. We've got the homeowner program, of course, the rental housing programs, the 4 of them, the small business program, the farm recovery program, and the FEMA public assistance match. For the homeowner program, which everybody knows is the biggest amount of money, thank you, $1.3 billion. The objective, of course, getting people back in their homes. We've had, as has already been said, 41,000 survey respondents, over 6,000 applications now, over 10,000 people invited to application. Is that not working? This describes the steps. It's a new graphic that we came up with. It's really difficult for people we understand to understand what all the process is that they're going through, and we appreciate that. Not only do they have to talk to numerous federal agencies and state agencies in the course of their recovery from the day that it floods to now trying to navigate this program, but then when they talk to us, they have all these different steps. We have the environmental review, we talk to the case manager, fill out the application, we go do the inspection at the home, and we understand that it's extremely difficult to understand why all those steps are necessary and what they all are. And so we produced this flyer to help folks. It's on the website. We have some printed out at the table out front, and it just is hopefully a help in people understanding the process that they're going through, and hopefully that makes that somewhat easier for them. And any suggestions for how we can make this better and more descriptive, we'd certainly appreciate. As has been alluded to already, we've had some folks getting back in their homes through the Restore program. Not nearly enough, as the governor said. We know that. We're not certainly celebrating. We just are glad that our systems are getting files through the system now, and that we are continuing to ramp it up so that we can go at the speed that we know we have to go to make this recovery full. We've had outreach events and activities all over the state. We almost literally will go anywhere that people can tell us that they have some people gathered together, and we can go talk to them about filling out the survey, about where they are in the program, about the different programs. In fact, we have had folks from the small business and program and the rental programs out as well doing outreach, because there are multiple programs and we've got to hit the right audiences with them. We have completed the door-to-door campaign. We knocked on some 8,400 different doors of folks who we knew would be eligible but had not completed the survey yet. The billboard campaign is coming to a close. The public service announcements and paid advertisements are all coming to a close here shortly. And we will continue to do other outreach events. We have done multiple in-person outreach events, and we'll continue to do that and look for opportunities to reach more people. So, as I said, over 41,000 surveys completed, over 10,000 since the last time we met. So clearly the outreach efforts have been paying dividends. We've gone up some 33% in the last month when the outreach events have been most intensive. Over 21,000 environmental reviews have been completed. I'm going to remind everybody what this innovation did for the program. Nobody's ever done this before. In order to not have to require people to quit working on their house when they apply to us, we've been able to go do these environmental surveys before the application so that we prevent anybody from missing out on reimbursement money, from being ineligible, and from having to slow down their progress. And nobody's ever done this before, but it's been a huge benefit and will continue to be a huge benefit in the speed that we're able to deliver the programs. Over 1,000 scopes of work have been performed. That's the damage inspection part. Everybody who gets funding from the program will have to have a damage inspection. Our inspector goes in the house. What we're seeing in the vast majority of homes is that people have at least started rebuilding. That's been one of the big changes in our data from our estimates to actual, has been how many people have started and completed their rebuilding efforts. And so practically every home we go into now has had some level of repairs done. Consequently, we're doing two different estimates, one for how much they've done and one for how much is left to do. So our inspectors will do all that in one trip to the house. And when they leave, they'll have the scope of work that is for prospective work, as well as the scope of work that we have calculated is completed and for which we'd be reimbursing.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Pat, who is doing the evaluation of the scope of work?
So our contractor, IEM, has contractors and subcontractors who go out and do that. Once they do that, those subcontractors have a QC process, IEM has a QC process, and then our program, through a separate contractor, we've talked about this at previous meetings too, our quality assurance, quality control contractor reviews those damage inspections as well for accuracy and completeness, and then they go to the grant process.
How thorough are the evaluations done so that those homeowners are assured that they're going to get the true value of the work that needs to be performed in their home so that it can be restored to a level of satisfaction for them?
Great question, and there are a few things to make sure that that happens. One, the QC process that I've talked through, that's the objective of it. We absolutely have no interest in shorting anybody's grant. We want them to get as much money as they can under the program. So the QC process is in place to try to do that first. The second piece of that is that homeowners may appeal the amount that we've given them, and they may appeal that if they choose solution 2, which is what most homeowners are choosing. Solution 2 is where you pick your own contractor. Most homeowners are deciding they want to use their own contractor. If their contractor comes in and looks at the scope of work that we've produced and says, you've missed 20 feet of baseboard, or you've undercalculated the square footage of sheetrock or whatever, we can go back, consider that change. You know, I mean, obviously we have to verify that that's correct, but so that's the next opportunity for homeowners to make sure that the amount we've calculated in Xactimate is the right amount. Now, it doesn't, if they change materials, if they choose other things, the cost will go up, but as long as we capture the scope of work, there's 11 linear feet of kitchen counter space and cabinets and 2,700 square feet of flooring. As long as we get those things right, and the homeowner and their contractor both have the opportunity to say, wait, you've missed something here.
And then, leading to the next point, what is the period of time from whenever the scope of work has been performed, they submit their application, and the application is approved, that they begin to see some reimbursement?
Right now, I can't tell you a good time. It's too long right now. We've got, as I said, some 6,000 applications in, and we've completed 543 grants so far. So we've got a lot of grants to move through the system. We're still ramping the speed of the system up. A month from now, I'm going to be able to tell you how fast we're moving and what our process is capable of. And we'll then be able to project from the number of applications and surveys we have how long that's going to take. Our objective is when we ask you to come in and fill out an application, that within 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to be out with an award amount, and then it's up to you to get your contractor and go do it unless you've chosen solution one.
Okay, thank you.
So our target is 3 to 4 weeks on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
You stated that many people have started.
No. There's one right in front of your book there.
You stated that many people started their work in their homes, but they really haven't completed it. There are some that spent their money already and need a reimbursement, or are awaiting their reimbursement of some sort so they can complete it. What's the process there? How are you treating that situation? Because I know there's a lot of people have come up to me and said, look, I've started and I've spent my money, and I've gotten some money from FEMA, but I'm not finished, and I know I'm owed a reward. How do I finish? So how long is it going to take them to get that award, and what is the process for going through that process?
So I'm going to try to answer what I think is the question. And our inspector will go in, calculate the value in our program of what work has been done already, and calculate the value of how much work is yet to do. Our award to them will be then in those two pieces, a reimbursement for what they've completed already, and an award of prospective funding for their contractor or for our contractor to go do that work going forward. Is that?
Yeah, so you do base it on a prospective amount.
Both. We calculate a reimbursement amount and a prospective amount.
And do you find that most homeowners are satisfied with that?
Yes, I mean, that's the program, is that we want to, if you've done work, we want to reimburse you for it. And if you got work yet to do, we want to finish it for you if you like, or give you the funds to let your contractor finish it.
I guess what I'm hearing is that they're having a difficult time getting that reimbursement, and that being enough to finish what they have to do.
Well,
So what I'm asking is, are you hearing that? And are you tackling those sorts of issues, or is it just street talk and it's not getting back to you?
I don't think that I've heard that, because if they've got work yet to do, we would be providing the funding for that unless they had duplication of benefits in excess of what our total calculation was.
Okay. Thank you. I see a lot of people behind you shaking their heads. Yeah, this is the problem I have. But I guess during the comment period, we'll hear some of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will say, on average, what we're finding is about 2/3, that the average total grant amount so far is about $29,000, and about 2/3 of that, on average, has been work already done, and about 1/3 of it, work not yet complete. Thank you. You can sit.
Pat, let me,
Sir, yes, sir.
let me just say this one thing for the audience. There will be an occasion for anyone in the audience to come and make a public comment. We don't have we have actions that needs to take place today before noon. And so reserve your questions or public comment until the end of the meeting. There's a card that you can fill out if you want to make a public comment or have a question to ask. Someone with OCD will approach you and follow up with you, but anyone that has cards to hand out, please look around, those that would like to make a public comment, because I see some hands being raised, but we don't have time to invite everybody to ask questions right now. So proceed. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Pope.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And Pat, I want to ask you one question in reference to follow up to what Mr. Badger has asked. That is, when you're going out and doing your survey into these homes, and you're determining that there's going to be monies for those, well, if they're qualified, let me rephrase it. If they qualify, there will be some monies if they've already completed a portion of it. There'll be some monies for that needs to be completed. And then you also made the statement, and this is my question, that if they are not penalized, and that's my word, for SBA or FEMA or some other resource of funds, that comes off. What is the percentage, or do you have a number, or do you have a ballpark number of how many people that you are finding that either has accepted FEMA money or applied or made application, whether they accepted FEMA SBA money or not, what that percentage of people would be, and how many and what percentage of that would be penalized in reference to what they would be able to get otherwise?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I'll see if we can get it before we're done with the meeting, and I can tell you the number.
Mr. Forbes?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor Norris has a question.
Before we get off the homeowner side, on your flow chart here, you had made reference to 3 to 4 weeks, starting with taking the survey. How far does 3 to 4 weeks get us?
I'm sorry. What I meant to say was 3 to 4 weeks after you complete the application.
What happens?
We would like to have issued the award.
The grant
The
agreement
potential award determination.
in 3 to 4 weeks?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty remarkable. Based on how big the pipeline is right now of what's going on, can you anticipate?
There are already people in the pipeline who have been waiting a lot longer than that. We've invited 10,000 people to complete applications, and over 6,000 of them have completed applications. And we will still be sometime getting those people through the pipeline because we're still ramping the system up.
Okay,
Our 3 to 4 weeks is once we're running at full speed, which we're still trying to get to.
So if they take the survey, that's when they find out if they're eligible to move forward then?
That's right. They will find out whether they fall into one of the phases based on their answers. It doesn't really determine eligibility. That will be done at the application phase. But at least it tells us they fit the criteria based on the information they put in the survey to fall into one of the phases, and then they'd be invited to application later.
So when, based on the number of people that have taken the survey, do a lot of people take the survey and then you have to tell them, hey, you're just not you're not in the category?
Sure. Some probably 15,000 people have gotten an email that says you're not in phase right now.
Okay,
A great number of those are folks who have flood insurance.
but the right now part, in other words, do you leave people the opportunity, we may call you back, you may become eligible depending on what happens today or in the
Yes, sir.
future?
In fact, the actions, if you take the governor's recommended actions today, that would change that email for some 12,000 people who have completed the survey already, who have flood insurance.
That would be pretty impressive. Good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, proceed.
I really don't want to leave the homeowner program without reiterating something that the governor said, which is this will never be fast enough for any of us, not for our contractors, not for you, I know, not for us. We do everything every day that we can to make this go faster. Despite the fact that we have done it faster than anybody has, that's not fast enough. I wish we would have been done 6 months ago. That's what people need for recovery, is timely funds to help them in their personal recovery and get the homes rebuilt. But
Let me make one suggestion on the flow chart then.
yes, sir.
Take the survey is the first item. The second is invited to make an application. Because a lot of people that take the survey or fill out the survey turn out to be not invited to take. I just think that's an important point, that people are asked, that you got to be asked to,
Yes, sir.
to follow up after that.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the neighborhood landlord program. Robbie, do you want to cover this?
So the neighborhood landlord program, again, is a $45 million program.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, excuse me, I apologize. I'm Robbie Bezak, Director of Recovery Housing for Louisiana Housing Corporation. The neighborhood landlord program is a $45 million program eligible for nonprofits and CHODOs and PHAs, and also for-profits who own the rental property at the time of the flood. Some eligibility requirements in this program as it currently stands is also that it had to be impacted outside of a special flood hazard zone. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll give you an update on where the program currently stands. Back one slide. We had an application deadline. We had an application deadline of August 16th, which I'm proud to say that as of today, we've received $35.1 million in applications out of the $36 million that are dedicated for rental infill properties. In addition to that, I think it's because of an intensive outreach effort. As you notice on the slide, we've done 21 outreach events in correlation with also the Restore program, reaching 1,800 citizens, also received some FaceTime on several news outlets across the state, which, like we hoped on the last task force, that would increase that interest in the program. Obviously, it demonstrates that with the numbers that we were able to report for today. We also had 18 contingent commitment letters mailed as of today for $8.4 million. What's involved in that contingent commitment is saying that basically reviewing your application for cost reasonableness is determined it's cost reasonable, and the next step is that we're doing environmental reviews. Once the environmental review is done, then we're going to do a notice to proceed to actually start the construction. And then that's what I have to say. There's an update. The slide right now currently says 33.5, but we did get some applications over the night. In total right now, we're at 367 units for $35.1 million. The slide represents 33.5 for 344 units. And if you have any questions about the landlord program. Then we have the Multifamily Restoration Loan Fund, $49.1 million. As far as loans dedicated for actual costs is $38.25 million. The rest is for program delivery expenses for that. We have a current application deadline of August 31st. With the assistance of HUD, we created several flyers sent out to faith-based organizations and public housing authorities over the past week, which sparked an increased interest in this program. This program is designed to allow a gap in funding for any units that have more than 20 units in a structure. All it takes is one unit being affected in order to be eligible for this program. This program, I feel, is very beneficial. It helps those that actually have an affordability commitment on the project. And we're also looking for apartment complexes that are currently at market rate to be able to assist them with any type of gap funding they needed. We have seen, surprisingly, a lot of interest in the market rates wanting to be come into this program, which is a benefit of the fact that we're going to be able to see 51% of those units become affordable. The cost per unit is also far lower than most of the programs you're going to see being ran as far as rental is concerned. That deadline is August 31st. Currently, we have $8.4 million in reservation letters out on the streets. It's anticipated with the phone calls that we've gotten throughout the flyer outreach that we're going to receive somewhere in the avenue of $6 to $9 million in applications by August 31st. Obviously, in a program like this, it's not like your regular old landlord program where you're receiving applications on a daily basis. This is an application model that you usually see them submitted by the close of business on the day of the application deadline. So we'll have more report on that as that August 31st date reaches.
Thank you, Robbie. The other rental programs we have, as you know, are programs that assist renters with rent and other wraparound services. And these are families and individuals who need more than just assistance with rent. Generally, additional services in terms of case management, behavioral health, physical health issues, and first one is rapid rehousing. Total budget's $24 million. Helps vulnerable low to moderate income renters who are displaced by the floods. We've made a great deal of progress. 152 households have been placed in rental units so far. Excuse me. The program is on track to serve 600 households over the program conclusion. 82 households are looking for housing at this point. This was a great tool in ending the TSA program, the Transitional Shelter Assistance Program, FEMA's hotel program, if you will, because a lot of folks there didn't have a place to go, and rapid rehousing was the appropriate tool to help them. The other program is permanent supportive housing. The PSH services, they've been authorized for remaining hotel population. We do still have some folks in hotels. That's being paid for by the rapid rehousing program, but they're moving them out to apartments. They're also analyzing the folks who are in rapid rehousing to see who among them may actually need something more along the lines of the permanent supportive housing program. We're projecting another 40 households will be assisted through PSH by the end of the month. Thank you. Sir?
Repeat that question, Pat.
Could you expand on the manufactured housing units? I actually didn't talk about the manufactured housing. We are working. Well, this thing, I can't make it stop there. We are working as folks exit the manufactured housing units with them to see if they're, again, just like the TSA population, if there are folks who are going to need some additional assistance getting to a more permanent housing situation than MHUs. In addition to that, disaster case management, which is a completely different grant. It's not the CDBG funds, it's a FEMA program for helping folks. Our disaster case management folks are also working with people who are working on their recovery plans to get out of their manufactured housing unit. So there's a good deal of effort going into that process. Thank you. Didn't mean to skip that. Okay. I'm going to move to the small business loan program. As you all remember, I'm sure $51 million allocated to this. the eligibility, 50 or fewer employees, and must have had an annual gross income of 25,000 or more, at least one full-time employee for the company, and experienced either physical or financial loss from one of the floods. Applications now are open to all eligible businesses. If you remember, we originally had a stipulation that never took an aim.
Yes, we met with the Bankers Association last week to discuss some of the program requirements and criteria, and got feedback from those members of the Bankers Association that normally deal with the clients that we're reaching out to apply for this program. And based on their feedback, we are looking to revise some of the criteria of the program as far as increasing the award amount, so that those applicants that we currently have, they're requesting more than what the maximum award amount is at this time. So we're looking to revise some of the criteria of the program based on the responses that we got from the Bankers Association. And it really helped, along with the surveys that went out late August. We've received a good response from those surveys, and the lenders that we have are reaching out to the respondents that said they were in need of financial assistance, and out of those, at least 65% of the respondents said that they would intend to apply to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, it's important to note we also got a good deal of feedback from members of the task force who were on the subcommittee for economic development that we should be looking at the program, making sure that it's tweaked appropriately for the responses we're getting in. We have all talked internally. We certainly plan to be responsive to that. We have extended the application date, but we absolutely are going to go back, relook at the program once that's over. We just know that these outreach efforts have been having pretty good success, and we want to let those play out first. But we absolutely plan to respond to the task force members who have suggested that we take a look at the programs and make sure that we've got them right. Thank you. The Louisiana Farm Recovery Grant Program has $10 million in it. The Agriculture Department, Commissioner Strain, is, of course, is extremely familiar with the efforts that they have been through. It is for farmers who made substantial income from their farms in 2016 and whose farms and crops were impacted by the floods and who are in our eligible parishes. They've held informational meetings. 340 farmers attended the meetings. 81 applications were submitted and 135 are pending. This program, as I reported last time, is well on the way to being fully subscribed and oversubscribed. And if you remember, the way that the funding, the way that the Agriculture Department will do the funding if the program is oversubscribed is not first come, first served, but by prorating the grant amount. So every eligible farmer who submits an application by the deadline will be eligible for a grant. The grant amounts will shrink as more people, more farmers submit their applications for the program. There's been a huge amount of outreach, and it has apparently been quite successful because it certainly appears they will be oversubscribed. You can see some numbers and dates here. Funds disbursements are planned to start in January. Oh, right. Thank you. The intake period ends at the end of this month, so the deadline for submitting an application is August 30th. And move on to, if there are no questions, to the FEMA Public Assistance Cost Share Match Program. I'm joined by Ms. Kay Lesage. She's the infrastructure manager at DRU. If you recall, it's a $105 million program We have 25% match requirement from the March floods, 10% match requirement from the August floods. The $105 million is estimated at this point to cover 100% of all PA match needs, including every category and both disasters, regardless of the percentage match. Any entity that's eligible for PA is eligible for our funding. Yes, sir.
How quickly are local public bodies being reimbursed or given this amount?
There is a long process. I'm going to let Ms. Lesage talk to you about it and how we're prioritizing.
I know it's a long process. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's why I'm asking.
So I will say, before I hand the microphone to Ms. Lesage, that nobody has really done this before either. We have worked with FEMA and HUD to get them to make their processes work better together. We've had very limited success so far, I will say. They actually met in DC without us there to try to, I commend them for at least the efforts to try to make this work better and faster, but so far we have gotten, not made much progress in that. So I'm going to let Ms. Lesage describe the process for you, but it requires a great deal of work. Our objective, I will tell you, is that this not be a complicated process for the local governments and nonprofits who are going to be the recipients.
It's a very long, detailed, arduous process, especially for folks that may not have staff. Okay, number one.
Yes, sir.
Second question I have is, what is the status on the national level regarding the waiver for the bridges? You know, we have to have so much coverage for buildings, and I know Livingston Parish is them significantly, and those other school systems that had buildings that were damaged.
Yes, sir. I have not heard anything about progress on that deductible reduction effort, except that I have heard Congressman Graves at some of his town hall meetings talk about putting legislation in this fall to try to affect that. So that I know of, there is no, we've not gotten any further than the last meeting on having that be fixed, except that I have certainly heard our congressional delegation discussing the possibility of legislation this fall to try to fix it.
So on the process itself, our objective, like Pat was alluding to, is to try to make it as streamlined as possible. So we're working directly with GOSEP. We're using their system. We're not creating duplicate work for the entity themselves. Anything submitted to GOSEP, we'll have access to it, so they do not have to resubmit separately to us for reimbursement. What we've held it within the last month or so is 3 sessions across the state explaining the process. The main thing that's important is that we want to ensure that everyone is receiving the additional requirements that come with the CDBG funds. It's a little different from the FEMA funds. We want to make sure we've communicated that to everyone so they can be eligible once they are requesting the reimbursement for the match. We are paying match at closeout of the PA. So once they went through the process of completing construction, GOSEP will basically review all the documentation and they will certify to me or our office saying, okay, here's the match amount, this is what they're eligible to be paid. By the end of this month, we're issuing what we're calling the program participation form. That's where we're telling everyone, please tell us if you want to participate, and then we'll start the process. This is just the preliminary numbers that we ran basically what we considered a pilot process to work out the process between our office and GOSEP. We borrowed a few state agencies for that process, so those are the ones. They actually were partial payments, just running through the system so we could make sure we had something in place that would function.
You go across the top line there, and when you get to I'm just curious as to how many public entities have received reimbursement?
No public entities.
As
There are
of
no public entities that have gotten their public assistance other than the state. These particular agencies that have been paid are state agencies that we use to run through the process.
Okay.
There are no other entities that have gotten, there's actually none that are at close out within the PA system. So none that are at close and have finished and GOSEP has certified this is the final payment.
As far as the 3 meetings held statewide, how was the participation?
It was good. We had 243 attendees across the board for the 3 sessions. We had one in Pineville, one here in Baton Rouge, and one in West Monroe. Thank you there. There's actually 428 current applicants in the process. They are not mandatory to attend one of those sessions. Some, if they have already worked with our office and are familiar with us, there wasn't a need for them to attend. They already are familiar with the requirements. We are going through that list to ensure that we didn't miss someone that should have attended. That's what we're working on this week.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Pope.
I do need to follow up on Mr. Falk's question and also a question for you. And you had indicated an answer to his question. There, at this point, funds have been distributed. Is that correct?
We have distributed some.
Other than the state?
Yes, sir. And those were actually.
None to local government, parish government, school districts, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Only state. They have to make application. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
They
It's
have
very.
to notify you that they're interested in making this application.
Yes.
Once they've done that, what would be your estimation of a time frame where they maybe get some reimbursement?
We're dependent and working closely with GOSEP because we need to get them to close out. So we
That
need.
didn't answer my question. I mean, I just need a time frame.
Can't. Once they get to close out, it's one payment in full. Once they get to close out. So what we have spoken to everyone about is to make sure you have provided GOSEP with all the requirements in order to close. Once I have communication and certification from GOSEP, then I will make that lump sum payment for the match, one payment.
And if I'm a school district, and I'm speaking for one right here that I represent in this parish,
Yes, sir.
and I make that request, how many times do I have to fill out and how many forms do I have to fill out in order to get GOSEP to respond? Or do you don't have that answer? I know you don't work there, but
Right, yes, sir. I don't work with GOSEP.
I understand.
We are working closely with them to help ensure that we're moving everyone to close out.
So I still don't know when that would be.
Not a specific timeline, no, sir.
That's my issue with some of this process. Not your.
Is someone from GOSEP here?
Our responsibility, we will get the checks once it hits closeout. That's why we've got access to their database. Once it hits closeout, we'll get the checks out.
And I have no issues with what y'all are doing. I'm just going back indirectly at some other agency, and I think that it's making it very difficult to have duplicate applications, fill out this form, this form, this form, this form, et cetera, whatever. Pat, this question is for you, and this has to do with the
Let me address your one comment you just made. Actually, there may be actually one piece of paper that they're going to have to fill additionally for me. I'm not adding any additional work. That's the objective.
That wouldn't be my problem. I'd fill out too if I could get my money.
Right, exactly.
Do that quickly. The thing, and I think Mr. Falk sort of alluded to, and this will go directly to the school system, and that is the amount of money. You may not have this answer. I don't know. If you don't, just tell me and I'll try to find it somewhere else. It's the $500,000 per building, per site. And I can tell you for this parish, it's $22 million that they've been affected if they have to put up $500,000 per building on each school site.
Yes, sir.
Significant amount of money. Is there anything that's going to help cover that?
So that's the thing that I was talking about.
Right.
A little bit earlier, which is that there is nothing that is not fixed. But I did hear congressional delegation members talking about legislation for this fall as part of the budget process to try to get that fixed. I certainly won't try to predict the success of that, but I know there's an effort.
So at this point in time, they're going to be responsible for that amount of money unless we get something on the federal level changed.
That's correct, and the governor has asked for that as well.
I've talked with him, and I assure you that and then our local delegation is probably doing the best that they can do with it. It's just that I need to make these people understand that that is still there. It's a real thing, and it could be a cost to the school district, $22 million. In fact, it's not changed, and I don't see any hope of being changed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I understand. That's a much bigger issue than the match, just in terms of raw dollars. But the governor, I know, has that at the top of his list for this fall. If no other questions, I'm going to move to the proposal based on the recommendation that the governor made.
All right, hold your mic closer, please.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to move on to the proposal based on, for the recommendation that the governor has made regarding expansion of the program. Essentially, there are three aspects to this. One is expanding to include all eligible homeowners who have flood insurance. If you remember correctly, we originally excluded all homeowners with flood insurance based on an assumption that they would have resources available to rebuild that other people without insurance would not have, and based primarily on a lack of available funding to meet all the needs as we saw them. The third appropriation allowed us to add phase one folks with insurance. What we have been able to do now, and the reason that we are proposing these three changes, is that now that we have gotten 41,000 surveys in, now that we have awarded 550 close to awards, and we have a better understanding of average costs for repair reimbursement, and we have a better understanding of how many people are coming into the program, we've been able to re-estimate how much money we have available in total. And the governor talked about this from the very beginning, as he alluded to in the video. Since February, he's been saying, as additional funds become available, we will expand the program to provide additional funding and include others who were not included. So the first step is adding folks with flood insurance. I want to make sure it's perfectly clear. This does not mean replacing flood insurance. We cannot, that is still a duplication of benefits. Flood insurance payments that people receive are still a duplication of benefits. The purpose of this is for folks who are underinsured and can't get back in their homes because they didn't have enough money. I can tell you, I've spoken with at least one homeowner who told me he had a $110,000 house. He owed $8,000 on the house, and so consequently he carried $8,000 worth of flood insurance. That was the minimum that the bank would allow. When his house flooded out with 4 feet of water, the bank got the $8,000 flood insurance payment, and he's sitting there with a gutted house. So that's a person, that $8,000 would be a duplication of benefits, but he still needs additional funds to get back in his home. So that's really the scenario. I don't want anybody to leave with the impression that we're giving people with flood insurance money that we're not giving to people with SBA loans.
Mr. Chairman? Hello. Question. Go ahead. Can you hear me now? To what extent?
Really close.
To what extent does the reimbursement or the difference pay? In other words, the example you just cited of $8,000. How much of that remaining $80,000 to $90,000 is going to need to bring his home back to where it needs to be is going to be paid by the program?
Is going to be paid by the program?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the differential?
That's good. Well, let's do this scenario. Let's say he's got $50,000 worth of repair damage, and he got $8,000 from NFIP to repair that damage. Well, that went to the bank. it doesn't matter to us. He had a loan before. We still have to count that $8,000 as a duplication of benefits. But if our exactimate repair value number is 50, then we will provide $42,000. He's got to come up with 8,000. That would all go in escrow, and then the contractor would get started to work.
Does your reimbursement include contents? Or is it there?
No, sir. But on the same token, we also don't count flood insurance that's for contents, does not count as a duplication.
Unless you have content flood insurance.
It still doesn't count as a duplication. If they had $50,000 in contents payment and $50,000 in structural repair payment, we only count the $50,000 for structural repairs as a duplication because we don't cover contents.
That's the clarity I'm looking for.
I'm sorry?
That's the clarity I'm looking for.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. SBA loans, I should say, are exactly the same scenario. If you got an SBA loan for contents or for exterior work that's not part of our scope of work, none of that counts as a duplication of benefits for our program. The only thing that duplicates is things that are for the same exact activities that we're funding. I do want to say, as part of this process, one thing that the governor talked, since SBA has come up, one thing that the governor talked with us about is SBA. He talked with Secretary Carson about it. He has submitted innumerable letters to both presidential administrations, to both Congresses since last August, to the Office of Management and Budget, all around the SBA issue. He knows it is the question that he gets most often about our recovery. It's the question we get most often about our recovery is, why is a loan considered the same as a grant? We think it's ludicrous too. It doesn't make sense. At this point, it's the law. The governor has requested relief from it. I want to make sure that everybody understands. If in fact tomorrow we got that relief, we would need more money, obviously. I think that's obvious to everybody. If we're going to go replace people's SBA loans, which we want to do, we're going to need more money. So those two things are going to have to go hand in hand. If that is a congressional fix, it's going to have to be both relief from the SBA rule, regulation, law, and the money to cover that difference. So that's critical.
Do you have any knowledge of possible litigation, not litigation, but legislation? I know you were talking about the congressional delegations is introducing something in Congress this fall session. But do you know if that's going to include this SBA issue?
I'm not intimately familiar with the legislation they're discussing, and I do not know. I would assume that it does. I have been at town hall meetings with many of our congressional delegation from the area, and they're getting the same earful about SBA that we all do. Sorry for the diversion. I'm going to go to the second aspect of this proposed expansion, which is increasing from 50 to 100% the amount that we reimburse folks with 120% of area median income or above. If you recall, because of our estimated shortages of funding, we said that people who were more than 120% area median income, we were only going to, for prospective work they have not done yet, we were only going to cover 50% of that because we didn't have available funds. Well, what we're proposing here is that go to 100% for every homeowner in the program. I know that when we talk about it, we say over 120, but in essence, what it means is every homeowner in the program for prospective work to get back in the house will be at 100%. The third, sorry?
Question there, you're talking about the available funds, and we've gone through several other programs. What will be done with the funding should the other programs not require the total amount that you've allotted to them? Will they go into these categories so that we can help more homeowners recover?
That would be up to this task force and the governor. That would certainly be our recommendation, is we would continue to think that that homeowners, and I would add renters, affordable rental housing and homeowner program would be our top priority recommendations if other programs have available funds.
And then I guess my question is, should we approve these recommended changes? What steps will be taken, or how will you know who to contact to let them know that this is available to them, that there could be some hope for some of these folks that maybe didn't meet the 120% requirement, maybe had flood insurance? So what steps will be taken to let people know, and how will you find out who these folks are?
So there are two different answers to that. One for folks who have already completed the survey. And if somebody's already completed the survey, we know that they would be in phase 3, but for the fact that they have insurance, they'll automatically get an email, a notification from the program that says, and if they don't respond to it, we'll make call outs, we do all those things. But we know who they are if they filled out the survey, and we'll reach back out to them and say, you are now, I know that you got a letter that said you were not in phase, you are now in phase 3. Whatever, the appropriate number would be. Now, there's the group of people that you're talking about who have assumed they were not going to get a benefit or not enough benefit to make it worth their while, because there is a misconception out there that the program as currently designed doesn't help people who make too much money. There are benefits at this time, 25% reimbursement, 50% of rebuilding costs, no matter how much money you make. If you've completely rebuilt, we still have reimbursement payments for you. That will continue. You're right. We have a challenge in outreach now because a lot of people have been either misinformed or misunderstood that they were not going to be eligible. So now we've got an outreach challenge to help them understand that there's even more benefit available for them now. And for those folks who have flood insurance, we have an outreach challenge to help them understand that now they're eligible for the program.
If they received reimbursement, let's say 25%, and they went on and they finished, will they be put back into the mix to get additional reimbursement?
That would be how it would work, except that so far we've only made grants to people in phase 1 and 2, which are 100% reimbursement. Okay. So we haven't put any 25% reimbursement checks out yet. So reimbursement checks for folks who would have gotten the 25 will now be 50, and we don't have to go redo anybody. Okay. If in the future we were able to move that number up and people had received 50, there would be a process of cutting another check. They wouldn't pay for having been earlier in the process.
Mr. Chairman, Pat, I guess you'll go over the numbers in a second, but if everybody fills out the survey, is there going to be enough, and you make payment for that, is there going to be enough money to cover these options?
The reason we have additional available funds is that, one, survey numbers are lower than we expected, and two, the average rebuilding cost is lower. The average rebuilding cost is not going to cover this whole difference. So the answer to your question and what the congressional delegation has said to us is, you show that you need the additional funds and we're going to go get them for you. So the answer is no. Likely if all of a sudden the 57,000 eligible people completed the survey tomorrow, we'd have new estimates and we'd have a new unmet need, and we'd figure out what that unmet need is, and we'd go try to get that additional funds.
Until you get those additional funds, is this going to be on a first come, first served basis?
Yes, sir. People who, we may get to the point, if we continue to get more and more and more survey results and those people are eligible for the program, we will continue to calculate available funds versus estimated usage, and we very well may get to a point where we say people who completed the survey after such and such a date are not going to be eligible. And we've always said there would be a deadline for the survey, and if we get to that point, that's what we do.
I'm gonna ask the question a different way. What percentage of the survey, people who haven't filled out surveys that are left? In other words, we're at, what, 50% plus or minus surveys filled out?
Yes, sir, but the numbers that I'm going to show you, we've also assumed that 10,000 more people will fill out the
Okay,
survey.
that's what I'm looking for.
Yes. We've made a guess at how many more will do it. If more than that fill out the survey, we could well wind up in a situation where we were short of funding for the additional later people.
Right. So this program will pay for itself with an additional 10,000 survey applicants.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Norris.
So if we pass this, then we're saying that there is no income limitation.
Right. That's correct. There will still be, the only people who would receive 100% reimbursement are those folks in phases 1 and 2. And if you remember, that required you to be both low to moderate income and either elderly or persons with disabilities living in your household. So that is an income distinction in reimbursement amount still.
Have you recalculated the average cost? Because if we have no income limitation, then we're talking about houses that may have been $500,000 or $600,000 houses.
The thing is that because we're only using our Xactimate standard materials estimates, it's unlikely that we would get to a situation where we have a huge grant like that.
Okay.
Most of those $500,000-$600,000 houses don't have Formica countertops or linoleum floors.
Okay. So are we to choose in voting on this between 75 or 100%?
Yes, sir. Our recommendation is, and when I show you the numbers, you'll see that we can handle the 100% with estimated available funds, and we would recommend going straight to the 100%. So you can see the last sheet there of the numbers, and I've got to get that in front of me actually.
We don't have that slide in fact.
Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have this slide. Okay, I'm going to go through the numbers for you then. We still have $1.3 billion allocated to homeowner assistance program. Our current estimate of need for our current population is just under $700 million. It leaves us $440 million additional. And that's after we've added the 10,000 people that I just mentioned to Mr. Bradbury. So we're making a guess that 10,000 more people will complete the survey and be eligible.
No, the 700,000 is before you added the 10,000, because you're adding 198 for the 10,000, right?
That's correct. That's right. That's before we add the 10,000. Then when we add the 10,000, there's a remaining $440 million that we have to allocate. And we have estimated the cost of each of the 3 different proposals that we've made to you. Covering 100% of the prospective work for phases 3 through 5 is, in our estimation, an $81 million price tag. Bumping the 25% reimbursement up to 50% is over $121 million price tag. And adding all NFIP holders with unmet needs is $193 million price tag. So if you add all 3 of those together, we're at $396 roughly million. So we still have a little bit of a buffer there between what we estimate as the available funds and what we would be spending to add these 3 aspects to the program. So there's still about a $45 million buffer in the estimated remaining amount and the cost of these 3 proposals combined.
Mr. Chairman, Pat, what confidence level do you have that you're going to get 10,000 additional survey applicants?
I'm actually quite confident that we will get at least that many, to tell you the truth. We've gotten 10,000 more in the last month Now granted, that was during a very heavy outreach period on multiple different fronts, and many of those outreach efforts are ending here shortly or already have. With that said, I think that the news of eligibility of flood insurance folks, as well as increased reimbursements and increased repair amounts, is going to drive a lot of people to the survey. It's our best guess right now, but we could surpass 10,000.
Again, so just so I can understand this, to be clear, if you pass 10,000 or you get another 20,000, what's left, the money that's left is going to be, for this program, is going to be based on a first come, first served basis.
That's correct.
And so did you sensitize those numbers any at all? Did you go to 10,000 above the 10,000 you assumed and 20,000? Have you sensitized these numbers at all to see? Because it makes a difference if we can vote for 75% versus 100%.
Meaning that you may want to leave additional funds in case additional people fill out the survey.
Yes.
Over the 10,000.
Yes. And you're saying that we're going to have to ask our delegation to go after more money to finish this program, if that's the case. And people are going to be scrambling because it's going to be on a first come, first served basis. So,
after the next 10,000 people fill out.
That's correct.
That's correct.
So I'm just concerned that we've got, again, it drives me to how I'm going to vote on the 100% level versus the 75%.
So the 70% is basically double. That would be $40 million. And there are a few assumptions in here that I should make clear. We've assumed that there's some 10% dropout rate on these folks. We've also assumed that with the flood insurance holders, there's going to be a much higher dropout rate. 30% is our assumption. And the reason is that probably most people with flood insurance have rebuilt and are fine, despite the fact that our calculations are indicating some unmet need based on total flood insurance proceeds that we know are out there. So these numbers could also, are also, we think, fairly conservative. So there probably is a bigger buffer than the $45 million that we think. But it's our best conservative guess right now.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Sir?
HUD has to, this doesn't violate any HUD's.
HUD will have to approve this, but by our assessment, this would be what we call a non-substantial action plan amendment. We're not changing the funding in a program, and we're not changing who are the beneficiaries of the program. And so consequently, it's a matter of our submitting an action plan describing the new plan for spending, and they have 5 days to tell us whether they object, and then it's automatically approved.
Okay. Any further questions from the task force?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Pope?
I would just like to make a comment and also will make a recommendation to the committee if I could. I would just like to, number one, thank the administration and the governor for taking this initial step. Certainly I want to compliment Pat, because for you people who know, he and I have had this debate for months. At the appropriate time, I would like to move favorably at 100%.
If I could just respond to that for a second. I work at the direction of the governor and of this task force, and any credit for this these changes goes 100% to the governor for telling us, go look, you told me you got this much money left over, go look at how you can add money to these things. And that's our job, and that's what we get. I appreciate it, but
my compliment to you is for going and finding a way to do it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, members, go to tab 7 in your binders, and that is the proposed resolution. Pat, would you point to the appropriate portion of this resolution or paragraph that we should pay attention to?
Yes, sir. I think one thing you may notice is that we have slimmed down the whereases in the resolution in a way that doesn't reiterate a bunch of things that you all know. We have moved to, if you will go to the bottom of the first page, and actually more importantly, I guess the 3 bullets on the second page are the important parts, and those are essentially the bullets that I just went over. They recommend including everybody with insurance and otherwise eligible as being now eligible, increasing payments for prospective work, that is work not yet done, to 100% for everyone, and increasing for phases 2 through 6 the reimbursement amount from 25% to 50%, recognizing that phases 1 and 2 are already 100%. So those are the 3 recommendations. And then number 2 just implores the Office of Community Development to submit an action plan amendment to this effect.
Pat, did you say phases 2 through 6 or 3 through 6?
I'm sorry, thank you. 3 through 6. Yes, sir. That's what I get for speaking instead of reading.
Okay. You heard what Representative Pope made a motion to do, and that is to approve 100%. All right, I'm looking at the resolution, and it's seconded by Mr. Olivier. I'm looking at the resolution. Where is that going to be modified?
That's in the second bullet on the last page.
Second bullet, which increased the percentage from 50 to 100.
Yes, sir.
So it meets, this resolution complies with Representative Pope's motion, right?
That's correct.
Okay, just to clarify that for the board, for the task force. Great, there's been a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll. Okay, all in favor? All right, let's call the roll.
Mr. Bradbury?
Approved.
Mr. Dortes? Mr. Durbin? Mr. Falk? Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Gissel? Representative James? Mr. Knapp? Senator Morris? Mayor Norris? Mr. Olivier seconded. Mr. Pearson? Representative Pope motioned. Mr. Riley? Dr. Richardson? Mayor President Robideau? Representative Shadowing? Commissioner Strain? Mayor Tyler? Dr. Wilson? Ms. Wyatt? Twelve voted in favor. It has passed.
Any further to discuss? Pat?
No, sir.
I brought up an issue to you early before the meeting began, and that is a FEMA prescriptive period on proof of loss pertaining to flood insurance, and to our knowledge, there has been no extension approved by FEMA. However, I'm going to present it to the task force to think about passing, offering a resolution directed to FEMA to extend that proof of loss prescriptive period for filing past September 1, which is when it will prescribe. So any discussion on my comment? Is that correct, Mr. Forbes? All right, is anyone on this task force wishing to make a motion to request FEMA to extend that proof of loss filing deadline?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Pope, seconded by Falk. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? There being none, that resolution has passed to make that request.
We will word that resolution and send it out to you for approval before we submit it.
If I recall our conversation before the meeting began, that is in the area of the Commissioner of Insurance to make that request to FEMA. This is just to supplement what he would formally request of FEMA, right?
Yes, sir. This would just show additional support for that position.
Moving now, thank you, Mr. Forbes. Okay, as I said earlier, anyone wishing to come forward and and sit at the table and take a mic. We have a number of cards. I'm going to ask everyone whose name I call out, and you can come forward to make a comment, to limit your comment or question to approximately 2 minutes, because we have a lot of forms here. 2 minutes, please, because someone with the task force will visit you, okay? Or they will respond to you upon their receipt of these cards from the Office of Community Development later. It may be today, it may be next week, but it will be soon. Okay, I'm going to request Mr. Thomas Powell. Mr. Powell, thank you.
I just want to say one thing.
Yes, sir.
Everyone that I've dealt with at Restore has been nothing but perfect. But I live in a double-wide mobile home, and they're telling me, okay, you're going to get X amount of dollars to replace it if it needs replaced, which someone has told me I'm going to have to replace it. I cannot buy, if they give me the full amount, I cannot buy, have installed, my old one taken off and have the new one installed for what they're offering me, what they would be giving me. And then they say, well, you got $16,000 from FEMA. I put that $16,000 into that trailer, along with my own labor and the labor of 2 other people that helped me. So, I can't get a trailer.
Okay.
And then the people I've talked to at the mobile home park said, well, it costs $10,000 to set it. Who come up with the amount of money?
Someone will be following up with you, Mr. Powell, soon. Thank you for your comment. Your card is filled in. Hopefully your phone number is on here. Phone number and address. Thank you for coming forward. Next one. Vonda Waspa. Ms. Waspa? Okay, if you will limit your remarks to 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
I'm Vonda Wascom, Executive Director of the Bogalusa Housing Authority, and I'd like to come to this time and to ask for an extension on the small landlord program. We have been working with a nonprofit, Save Bogalusa, and we have been looking for the adjudicated properties that we have list of, multiple. And we're also looking at blighted areas. This research takes time. We have made contact with some property owners, and we're back and forth, but we still do not have ownership of the property. We would like to ask for an extension and put housing choice vouchers in them. And after 5 years of compliance, would love to convert those into homeownership for the resident. So if you could please consider the extension of the program, we'd deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. This young man right behind you, he listened closely. He will visit with you. You don't have to answer. Okay. Next card. Mike Myers. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I just want to support the governor's proposal to include assistance to all flood victims, including those who had flood insurance. I can tell you personally, I had flood insurance. My house is still not repaired. There's about a $40,000 to $60,000 shortfall between what flood insurance has paid and the repairs needing to be done. And it's all tied up in an endless process of appeals and supplementals, one of which was filed in January of this year and is still pending the request for supplemental funds from flood insurance. So I'm not the only one out there like that. A lot of people, while they thought they had sufficient insurance, in the real world market of price and cost, the insurance just does not cover the cost of repairs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Paul Mathern. Mr. Mathern, you can come forward. And we have a mic up here. Would somebody have Mr. Mathern a mic? So he doesn't have to squeeze into the table there. Right there, Mr. Mathern, fine.
Hello, hello. We were underinsured, filled out in April, the form, got the rejection letter. We completed using, we did have flood insurance, we were in a A&E zone, never flooded, but for years, it's been there 20-something years. We were underinsured because for medical reasons, we have, mother and father-in-law living with us and all that stuff. We are almost complete. We're still lacking some vanities, some cabinets, that kind of, things. We're already back in. We sent the trailer away. We were just making sure that we would get some little bit of help. Not looking for, handouts, but just a hand up, trying to finish and complete it to get it back the way it was. We did a whole lot with a little bit that we did have in insurance. But, we're still almost there. Happy to show anybody who wants to come look at the home and how much we did and the amount of things, that we accomplished with a little bit of money would astound most people. I want to make sure that the money that we do get will be used, and it will be used to complete. There will be no extra. Like some people, want to get a check, and hope they're going to make more money. We just want to get it completed, and that's what we're looking for. Just some help, a little bit of help that we need.
Okay,
And
Mr.
that's all.
Mathern. This lady right here that I just handed your card to, it was not filled out completely with your address and phone number, so she will help you, okay? Thank you. Next one. Okay. Jackie Yancey. Miss Yancey.
I need clarification on income levels for reimbursement. My 2016 1040 put me 4% of my income into the 25% reimbursement, 96% into the 100% reimbursement. It's my understanding that if my income for this year, 2018, is lower, then I can qualify for the 100%. I can use that income and qualify for the 100% reimbursement. Is my understanding correct?
Somebody with Office of Community Development will respond to you quickly, okay? We just want to make sure that that is your concern and your question. We have your card and your phone numbers on here, so somebody will follow up with you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams, coming forward. And you can have a seat if you want to.
Sure, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Wendy Williams, Project Save Bogalusa. I'm the executive director. Project Save Bogalusa is a community revitalization project, and we're the only CHODO organization serving Washington Parish. We were recently successful in a cooperative endeavor agreement with the city of Bogalusa for the donation of adjudicated properties. There are currently more than 750 adjudicated properties inside the city limits of Bogalusa. I'm here to urge you not only to expand your funding application deadline, but I would also urge you, as in the words of Governor Edwards, to remove the barriers in the program. Specifically, dealing with the neighborhood landlord program, I ask you to expand the eligibility to include options for the purchase of property versus expecting a deed in hand. When you're dealing with adjudicated properties, there is a title process and clearing up that title. We're currently working with Civic Source to clear up those titles, and that takes 90 to 120 days. So we need a little bit more time not only to research these properties. Nonprofits are mission driven. Therefore, we don't have resources needed to land bank properties. We can't just wait for the next, buy these properties and wait for the next natural disaster. We also go into neighborhoods that the traditional developer doesn't want to invest in, areas where there's blight. In Bogalusa, our streets are lined with blight. So I ask that you take these considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Rogers. Melanie Rogers. Ms. Rogers? Okay. I don't know what microphone. Hold it up close to you. That one probably doesn't work if you use this.
Okay.
Hold it close.
All right.
Hold it close.
I live on Thistle Street in a mobile home, a triple wide mobile home. I just got approved to get $65,000 go buy another mobile home. At the first flood, my husband passed away. He worked at Baltimore City Parish for 23 years, and I took out his 401k plan to pay off our mortgage, or his mortgage, and did a succession after the August flood. I used some of his life policy to fix things, and then asked FEMA to reimburse me because we didn't have flood insurance because we weren't supposed to get flooded in Magnolia Estates. Well, yesterday they told me that I had to get rid of my mobile home that I just paid for, and the $16,000 that FEMA reimbursed me for the stuff that I paid for, I'm having to use that for closing costs. And I have to get rid of the home that me and my husband, my deceased husband, passed that we purchased in 2004. That's not fair. You know, if y'all gonna give me $48,000 whatever dollars, I can use that to rebuild my mobile home to where it should be.
Why don't we do this? I heard your situation. We've heard your situation. Is there someone that she can go in the front up there to talk?
They told me that they couldn't talk to me because all this is confidential. I just tried to talk to the lady back there, and she said she couldn't talk to me about anything because all this is confidential. So, you know, they don't have nobody there to talk to me.
What's that, Pat? Yeah, okay. Who should she go to? Somebody will follow up? Okay. Someone will be quickly getting with you. Thank you. Charlotte Minor. Baker.
Good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you all for approving the resolution. Now my family, who we're in phase 6, will probably benefit. This is my second request. We made this request at the last meeting, and it's under the Neighborhood Landlord Program. There's 2. One for nonprofits to be able to, under the 5 to 7 units, extended to $125,000 per unit for construction eligible expenses. We have nonprofits who are part of 18 on the list that received the contingent award. And so it would greatly benefit them to have to get a more increase on that, so they would have to have a debt service with the bank. And the second is to allow for-profits to participate. I support both nonprofit and for-profits, but I also live in a community where we got impacted by the flood, and we have renters as well who are still looking for housing. And so Louisiana needs capacity. Those who are, whether you're nonprofit or for-profit, that have the resources and can do it now, to have our families come back and be made whole, that's the direction we need to go. The question I do have for the presentation that was made at 18 so I didn't get any follow-up from the first one as well. So
Okay.
just wanna-
We will. Robin Williams. Robin Williams, okay. Welcome, Ms. Williams.
Good morning. My name is Robin Williams. I live in Forest Ridge subdivision off of Buddy Ellis Drive. I just wanted to give the panel a realistic version of the timeline that is going on with the Restore project. I am grateful. I do not want to appear as though I am not. But I filled out the survey when it first opened up April the 10th. I was invited to apply, which I did so June 18th, I'm pretty sure. At that time, I didn't hear anything. July 1st was the first inspector that contacted me. He made an appointment to come out. He never came. I had to call and basically threaten to report him to his supervisor if he didn't come after the first 10 days. Finally, I called back. I got another inspector. The first inspector did come. He spent 5 hours in my home. He took measurements. He took pictures. He was all in my shower taking pictures.
What day was this?
It was on, I want to say July 10th. I'm sorry, I left my form in the car. I'd written all my dates down, but I have them all printed out.
Okay.
He came, he stayed 5 hours. He got there about 4:30 that evening. He didn't leave till 10:30 p.m. that night. At that time, he said he would submit the information and get it all uploaded, and I would be contacted. I waited a week, didn't hear anything, called to check, and they said that I had been assigned to Providence. Now, Providence apparently is the company who is doing the inspections. And I was like, well, why am I assigned to them? I've already had an inspection. I explained all that. They said that something happened with Rick Rabelais, who was the inspector. I didn't get any more details on that. They said I would be assigned to someone new. I was assigned, and the new guy came out. In fact, that day, he spent another 4.5 hours at my house, did all the same things that the first inspector did. So, but from July 1st till today, which is August 18th, 49 days, I have been in the inspection period. I'm still showing a level 1 QC inspection in progress. No one can really tell me how long that takes, which I understand they don't want to lock me to lock them into a time frame. But I feel like none of the departments really know what's going on in the other departments, because no one can really tell you. They say they don't know what happens in level 1 QC, but that's where I am, and the next phase is gonna be eligibility. So in the meantime, I've been working on my house. I have depleted every cent that I have. I've taken, money. I had to choose between, I'm a single parent, so I had to make a house for my child. We didn't have any place else to go. So I've depleted all of my resources financially. I've not paid credit card bills or mortgage bills to just try to get my house livable so we can have a place to go. I am thankful that you all approved the resolution to increase the reimbursement amount, but the pipe is taking so long to get through this. I may not have a house to keep.
I hear you, and before the meeting began, I talked to a number of people that have not heard back.
And
Just
I
like
feel
you,
like,
and I want you to hang around, and I will visit with you myself after we finish, okay? So thank you for coming up.
I know so many people that have not applied, and when I talk to them about it, they say they don't apply because they don't know anyone who has gotten reimbursement funds.
Thank you,
If
ma'am.
more people got funds, you wouldn't have to advertise to get people to apply.
Just hang around, okay?
Thank you.
Clifford Kempsey, or Kemper, Clifford Kemper. Kempsey, okay, Mr. Kempsey. I'm not saying that right yet. We got you a mic coming, so just Kemp Sr., Clifford Kemp Sr.
Good morning.
Mr. Kemp, okay.
Beautiful day to be in paradise. You have to have something to say, but you have to feel good about it too. Because there's a hope take the mind of an ant. If he either gonna go over it, around it, or under it, then he don't quit. And that is me. I am totally disabled. I have to commend your panel and all that we've heard because I don't live in this parish, but I live in Ascension Parish. Been a registered voter over 50 years. I have been turned down by FEMA 4 times. As of yesterday, I called them and asked them about the blue tops because I've talked, got my sons to talk and talk till there's no more talk left. My latest letter from FEMA said my home was livable. We fought left and right with the pellets until the March thing just went off. They told me over there that was gone. The other thing I had with FEMA was just a simple thing of writing me letters telling me my social security number did not align with the information they had. And I went in the office and carefully when they were flipping through my pages, the page was totally blank. You ran the copy off, and all you had to do was ask me for another copy. I'm tired of Hyatt's. Maryland. I traveled 48 states in Canada constantly for 32 years. And this is what I need. My home is not livable. I was treated somewhat less than a human being when I was with FEMA. Let me walk into Road Restore Home with a program, and I felt welcome because they welcomed me. I began this process in April the 4th. And I've been checking back and forth. I've gone through the survey. I've got my survey number. I got all my paperwork right. I'm a quiet person, and I've lived with all of my family members until they got to a point to where I'm mere pencil. But my question is, I did not know that you had a program for temporary housing. I am living in my car. And I want to know what stage, how long it's gonna be before anything. The inspector has been out to my home, and that's all I know.
Mr. Kemp, somebody will sit with you shortly, so if you will, your time is up. I appreciate this because I remember you speaking in Ascension Parish when we were down there.
No, it wasn't.
That wasn't you. Where did he speak? Did he speak?
This is not fair.
This is your first time?
Yes, and if you're having a forum in Ascension Parish, we'll be there.
Okay.
We know where it is.
Okay. But if you will sit back down, we've got your card here, and we will visit with you shortly. I want to follow up with that story also.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're living in your car. We need to find out what's going on. K.C. Jones. We'll get you a mic in just a minute, Mr. Jones.
Good morning. I'm a resident of Denham Springs, and I did the survey just as soon as it came out. So that's, you know how long ago that was. And been through all the hoops, been inspected, 2 or 3 times. Been assigned phase 2 in the process, and been waiting now, I guess 3 or 4 weeks for everything to be reviewed. And I heard something today that kind of concerned me, that Restore didn't give funds out if you were in a flood zone. So I'd like to get that clarified. Am I waiting for nothing, or did I mishear that?
I know you said we would answer, but this is too big a question. We fund projects in flood zones. We fund projects outside of flood zones. It doesn't matter. It matters about the phase that you're in, and that's just a matter of getting a manageable number of applicants coming in at a time, is all the phasing is. Your floodplain has absolutely nothing to do with your eligibility for the program, and you will absolutely be eligible.
Thanks, Pat, for coming up. Joe Norton Jr.
Testing. Okay, that works. My name is Joe Norton Jr. I'm a proud resident of extreme southeastern East Baton Rouge Parish. I have lots of good neighbors in Ascension. A couple of things. There was a news report recently in one of the meetings. Public relations person made the comment that most phase 3 flood victims had been invited to apply as of about a week ago. I'm in phase 3 and I have not yet been invited to apply. I have a caseworker that was assigned to me on my birthday in late June when I went to their office over at Celtic Studios, and I haven't heard much from her other than to say, check your email every day. So that's one concern. The other thing is the SBA roadblock. I am not opposed to people with flood insurance getting assistance from this program. I know many of them have been lowballed by their insurance companies and need help, just like I do. But I believe this question was answered earlier, that if the feds reverse the SBA roadblock tomorrow, you will need more funding. And I'm not going to be real thrilled if the request to expand to people with flood insurance gets approved, and then those of us who bought this SBA loan is a great thing, you ought to do it, are going to be penalized for what's not a benefit, in my opinion, and be left with no assistance from this program. If that happens, I will not be a happy camper. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up and sharing your comments. Catherine Phillips. Catherine Phillips. Okay. We'll bring a mic to you, Ms. Phillips.
Hello, thank you for listening to me. I think y'all answered my question. It was about the 25-50%, and y'all approved up to 100%, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, we got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir, that's all I needed. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Tawana Purvis.
I have the same issue about the SBA loans.
Okay.
I don't think it's fair.
I mean, we had to move on, and when FEMA came, they're the ones that kept suggesting get a SBA loan. So that's my comment.
Appreciate it. You remember the comments of our past president. He's in the same situation with an SBA loan, and it's a duplication of benefits. So we will be working with the congressional delegation and encouraging them to look at this very closely. Jackie Cockrell.
Thank y'all. First off, I'm representing my daughter. I live in St. Tammany Parish. I did not have flood issues, but my daughter lives here in Denham Springs, and she did. A couple of things. One, the Restore program came in and tried to do what I would call a very pitiful attempt to get her back where she could live in her residence. They put a commode in, it still does not flush today. The electrical receptacles they put in, I had to go back and redo totally myself. I gutted the house myself. I'm 70 years old. She couldn't afford it. She was going through a divorce, still going through a divorce. Now, FEMA's trying to put her out of the trailer that they finally got. I'm not a happy camper.
All right.
I had to get a letter from her lawyer yesterday, and she had to write a letter to give to FEMA today to keep them getting kicked out of her trailer today when she has no other place to go with 3 children.
We're reading between the lines with your comments, and Mr. Forbes.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
I want to clarify. I'm fairly certain that the what Mr. Cockrell's talking about is shelter at home program, which is not the Restore program. It was a short-term sheltering program until we could get there. And at any rate, I just want to make sure people understand the distinction between the two. One was for short-term sheltering, and this is for long-term recovery.
Someone will make a leave shortly to talk about the.
She had flood insurance.
Okay.
She tried to get an SBA loan with the anticipation of flood insurance to be paying that, and still denied.
We just need to follow up and see if she's completed the survey through this Restore program. Well,
if she's already done it, but you can go to the table in the back and ask those ladies, and they'll look her up and find that out. The other thing I want to make sure that we do is if she's heading out of an MHU, it may be that she's going to need some housing services in the interim and the disaster case management services through Catholic Charities. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Somewhere I showed you to the table in the front. They will help you with it.
Thank you.
Ace Cox. Ace Cox. Greenville Springs. Sure. Go ahead,
Why are
Commissioner.
we picking these mobile homes or these trailers up before the people back in their houses? Why is that happening? Can anybody answer that?
Okay. Casey, go Seth. Coming forward, Commissioner. He's going to try to help that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Cox. We're just going to get to you in a minute.
So FEMA has what they call a recertification program where they come out every 30 days and evaluate the survivors' progress in their permanent housing plan. And there are some minimum requirements that a survivor needs to meet. Unfortunately, I think some of the things that we're hearing are, some lack of consistency from staff member to staff member in terms of how that is evaluated and that sort of thing. And we've had some success with FEMA management in evaluating those concerns as they get raised to us. Unfortunately, that happens on a case-by-case basis when we find out about it and not necessarily on the front end when that issue is actually occurring. So we're more than happy to engage with FEMA as we find out about those issues. But there are a lot of reasons why it occurs, and there are a lot of complications in terms of, on an individual basis. But in general, if someone is working towards their permanent housing plan, they should be, as a part of this process, being recertified and able to stay with, in the MHU. There will be a program deadline of February where the program programmatically ends, and that's something that we're working with now in terms of evaluating if an extension is required and that sort of thing.
Well, I would think if you see where we're at in the progress and the number of roadblocks that have been found, that we're going to have to extend this. But I can't see if someone still needs to be in one of those, those units that it gets picked back up, right? Because you're not going to cycle that unit to somebody else at this time.
No, that's correct, sir.
That unit's going to go either into storage or destruction or whatever happens to it, right?
Yes, sir. They are currently, as they're being deactivated, going through GSA for auction. But I would agree with your point that in general, the rule is if somebody is working towards making that progress, they should be allowed to be recertified at every 30 days.
Okay. Well, you'll take a look into this to make sure that someone doesn't fall through the cracks. That's what we appreciate, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. Okay, Mr. Cox.
One, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's here on the committee and working with this as far as getting Louisiana put back together. My name is Ace Cox. We started a small Facebook group at the beginning of the floods called Louisiana Flood Rescue. That small Facebook group is just shy of 42,000 people currently on that group. Everyone there is related to this flood. The page was started specifically for that. The issue I'm running into currently is that the miscommunication or just lack thereof. What I would like to encourage, your team, I've spoken with Nick Spires, who's helping with you guys with marketing, is to give a representative for that community, those online platforms and those Facebook groups, to actually go on there. When the Restore Louisiana name is mentioned on that page, we're having 120 to 130 comments, questions, and everything like that. The challenge you're running into is people from the community that dealt with the organization, you guys, are speaking on your behalf. That is not the way to go about things because unfortunately those individuals aren't as educated on policies and procedures. So my request is that through Louisiana Flood Rescue that we have someone that can assist with those questions. And then the other concern I have is with the current open meetings such as this, if there's an option to host one of these after hours or on the weekends, I think that would do a justice to the community. Simply because Friday morning, most of those individuals that are currently trying to rebuild their homes, they don't have the luxury to step away from work. They have to be at work this morning. And with your webcast peaking at roughly 3,000, just over 3,000 views today, that indicates that communication was not there. So again, anything that Louisiana Flood Rescue myself can help you guys with educating or communicating with the community out there, please lean on us as a tool. Our number one goal since day one is to connect the community with people that can help and assist, and that's what we're here for.
Appreciate the comment. Deborah Rader. Most of you aren't privy to where these folks live, but we have broad range of people that are keeping up with where these task force meetings are being held.
To the point of having a lead inspector come out, have not seen a damage inspector. My question is, if my house, which was built before 1970, has lead paint on the exterior, am I going to be kicked out of the program? Or I can't afford to get my house repainted.
Gotcha. We can help you right quick.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So the process for lead is if we find lead that needs to be remediated, we just add that to the scope of work and we pay for the remediation. There's no additional cost for the homeowner at all. If we find out we've got to remediate it, either sanding it off or covering it or whatever, and even if it's in the soil, whatever remediation activities are determined to be necessary by the testing, we just add that to the scope of work and it comes out of the program cost. It doesn't change your scope of work or your cost at all.
So like, there's one room in my house which is called the Florida room. I've got one wall that's going to have to come out, exterior wall. because it's got mold on
Are
it.
you continuing to live in the house?
Yes, I do. I don't have any other place to live.
Okay, well, you bring it up interesting points. Are you going to have to vacate the premises when this is being remediated, or can it be remediated while you continue to live on the premises? Pat, do you have any comment? We're getting a question. Okay.
Yes, sir. Our policy is that if she chooses solution 1, we would require her to
Vacate the premises?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Well, we also have, in circumstances where there's no other choice, we're also looking at rental assistance through the rapid rehousing program and other resources that we can try to reach. If you choose solution 2, you can work with your contractor and maybe they can work around you while you live in the house. Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so she needs to talk to someone about rental assistance or whatever.
Right. Yes, sir.
All right, where would she go?
We're gonna, I'll get her connected with somebody from Louisiana Housing Authority, which runs the rapid rehousing program.
Make sure her information is on the card, ma'am. We'll be in touch. Okay?
Have to all the
We got you.
contact info.
Yeah. Thank you for coming forward. Sharon Bell. Sharon Bell. Okay, over to the right. Miss Bell, there are 2 microphones. There's one in the middle.
First of all, I would like to thank you guys for being interested in the community. I live in Senator Boyd White's community. I'm from Katrina, so this is my second time around with this. Okay, the reason why I chose to rebuild is because my senator cares about his community. Anytime you call in his office, it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but he's gonna take care of his community. I've raised my son to be an engineer. He's now in the United States Armed Forces. I'm a single mother from New Orleans, inner city. If anybody would come to my house and see the amount of work that I've done in the house, I appropriated every dollar that FEMA gave me to that house. The savings that I had, I put it in that house. I applied for the Restore program. I've had the net inspection. I've had the guy come out and do the measurements. Every time you call, there's no answer. I deserve better.
What solution did you choose, 1 or 2?
1.
Okay. Same issue that we have right now?
I know you've heard the story, but they're not responding to us.
Okay.
I know my senator, he see my face, he's gonna take care of me. And I'm telling you, Senator, I appreciate everything you do for our community. And you take care of us. I don't know about the rest of them, but you always help me as a single mother. And I just came up here to tell you, I'm tired of singing this song. Do what you do for me.
Thank you for coming. We have her information on the card? Okay. Elisa Collins. Elisa Collins.
Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Collins.
Hold the mic closer.
Okay, I pretty much heard the answer to my concern. I have flood insurance. I filled out the survey on the first day, and I was later told that I didn't meet any of the basics. My situation is my house has to be elevated. We don't have the money to elevate and rebuild. Flood insurance will cover a portion of it. What we don't want to do is start and then not be able to finish. I haven't talked to a contractor yet that wants to take on a project and not know where the rest of the money's coming from. I have not been asked to do an application, and so that's my concern. What do I do?
Okay. There are people behind you taking notes, and we have your card with your information on it. Someone will be getting with you. Thanks for coming up and sharing your concern. Monique Robinson.
Good afternoon, Task Force members. Thank you for allotting me 2 minutes of your time. My name is Monique Robinson. I'm the Executive Director of Vital Resource Solutions. We are a nonprofit providing disaster case management to flood survivors. I just wanted to come up and comment about the rental assistance program. I saw that there was a $24 million allotted, and I've watched that number at several of the task force meetings. I had several survivors trying to get through to get rental assistance. They had found their own housing. We were not successful in obtaining any rental assistance. We were told there was a waiting list or redirected somewhere else. We were never able to get through. I had a survivor that was recently evicted from her rental unit. She wasn't able to make the rent. She had 4 children. We couldn't get through. I had another survivor call, and she was on the verge of committing suicide, and I tried to talk her out of it. I have to follow back up with her and track her down. We couldn't get the assistance that we needed, so I couldn't understand why $24 million was not readily accessible. So I saw a few numbers up there, but I know there are several people that are awaiting assistance. They've already found housing. They may need just a little help to continue stabilizing their family. I did get a number from Mr. Bezot today. I'm hoping we can get through, but I hate to keep turning people away and not be able to access the money. The pot of $24 million is supposed to be accessible to the survivors.
Appreciate it.
So if you could please find out, I'll get numbers, better numbers next time by parish or something, that would be a great help for the community. Thank you.
Making notes behind you right now. Okay, Raj Pandit. Mr. Pandit. Okay, Mr. Pandit.
Good morning. My name is Raj Pandit. I'm an attorney that is representing underpaid flood-insured homeowners. My question is exclusively related to the duplication of benefits calculation. Specifically, let me be clear, I fully agree that anybody who has flood insurance proceeds, those proceeds should be a part of their DOB calculation. However, if someone has to get expert help to get an additional payment, to me the calculation should only be based upon the money that they actually receive. And this has been sort of well-settled precedent in other states who've had a natural disaster. New York after Sandy, South Carolina after Matthew. And this is how the SBA calculates this as well. All DOB calculations are always after deduction of an attorney's fee or some other type of fee. And so I just want to make a public comment that this process here should also follow the well-settled precedent that's been established in other disasters.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your comment. Next call. Okay, that's the last one. So public comment period is over. Do you have any comments further, Pat?
Just that there was a question asked earlier, and I said if I could get an answer for it before we finished, I would get that for y'all. And the question was, how many people with SBA? Oh, I'm sorry. How many people with SBA were in our applied population? We've had close to 6,400 applications, and 1,600 of those have SBA loans. That's about 25%. And the average duplication of benefit from the SBA loans is $48,000. So, hope that answers the question.
You bet. Any questions following up on that comment from Taskforce? Nothing? Okay. Moving to other business, Denham Strong, a group in Denham Springs here, is holding a celebration of hope this weekend in Denham Springs. A flyer is in your packet. It's going to a number of activities in the historic area of Denham Springs and also at Denham Springs High School. GOSEP Task Force update is in tab 9. Per the request of the task force, OCD has provided us with an AMI average median income tiers and glossary of terms, tab 10 and 11. And our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, September 22nd. Task force, the location will be forthcoming. Task force, you all are much appreciated. I just want to say, from my own perspective, coming together as a quorum and taking the action today is very meaningful. I know some of you have long ways to go, as my friend right here from West Monroe, Mayor Norris. So thank you all for coming today, and I appreciate the attendance and the participation in the question or comment period. This meeting is now adjourned. Was there something, Commissioner?
Yes, sir. Just a second. We heard from two individuals about getting reimbursements for repairing their mobile homes, then to be told that they have to sell their mobile homes. But is there an explanation from that as to exactly what's going on, or how? Is this two isolated incidents, or is this larger in scope? And how do we deal with that?
I just think it needs further investigation, but I'm like you. I think we should get a follow-up on this at the September 22nd meeting. I'll take that as a request coming from you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay. Anything else?